afternoon, Mark. Another day in paradise. How are we?
But you're wonderful today, Dan. It has been the most spectacular day. I got up this morning when the sunrise was rising, and I have to say, it left me with a spring in my step.
Oh, it's always nice to hear. Always nice to hear. It has been actually a cracking day today. Not many clouds in the sky, although there have been lots of other things in the sky, but I'm not going to go into that. Anyway, today, I was thinking, because I was cooking earlier on, I was thinking, what about food? What about the good things from Spain that we like about customs in Spain, like the food and like the atmosphere and places to visit and things like that. So today's topic is why we like living in Spain. What are the good things that we like about living in Spain? And there are lots of them, of course.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic because it's very easy to be very negative about where you live, but we have to. I just have some visitors here, and you tend to look at Spain through a different set of glasses almost when you've got people here, and you realise how lucky you are, especially where we are in the south of the country, where the weather is so wonderful,
Yep.
and the cost of living is really reasonably cheap, and the countryside is spectacular.
It is, and I think that's probably one of the biggest draws to Spain, and especially like the coastal side of Spain, is the economy, the price of things, but the food, the selection of food, and of course the weather. We get so many days of decent weather that it's obviously very, very appealing. You can get much more done during the day, and there's an awful lot there you can do without having to have a major budget as well. So.
Well, that is important. I mean, we're looking at this. I think we should look at this as the angle as two foreigners living here, because it can be tougher for a local, a minimum wage, etc., etc. So let's move away from that and let's base it on, say, people coming to visit and talk about the things that we love. And the obvious one is clearly the weather here, because in our very first video we did one on the weather, which was a little bit tongue in cheek at times, but here in the winter, the weather truly is amazing. I mean, today it was close to 16, 17 degrees. There was not a cloud in the sky. And the sunrise this morning, honestly, it was just amazing. It was just beautiful to see.
Well, you know the view that I get from here. So I was out watching the sunset a little bit earlier on, and the changing of colours, which is just my favourite time of day as well as the sun rises, which I get to see every morning as well. But yeah, I mean, when you think about people that are trying to escape their doom and gloom, or their cold climates, or the grey weather and drizzle and wet weather, Costa del Sol, not just the Costa del Sol, because you've got the Costa de la Luz, Costa Blanca. It's just you can go to different pockets at different times and have such a change in weather. It's phenomenal, the different climates that are around.
But I think we're lucky where we are, based on the Costa del Sol. Is the tourism here is quite minimal for this time of year, which always surprises me because it is a wonderful place to visit in the winter months compared to the madness of the summer. But the weather is spectacular. I mean, this morning I was on my way to the gym and I was wearing a pair of shorts and a loose jacket, and I was like, "This is ridiculous! It's 8:15 in the morning, and I'm in February, and I'm going to the gym wearing shorts." So you think it wouldn't have been like that in the UK? And my friends were over from kind of like the Potteries area, and they were saying it's been so wet and miserable and grey. Then my wife goes, "They seem obsessed with the weather. They're obsessed with the weather for a reason, because it's not like this in the northern part of Europe most of the time. I mean, to be fair, in the northern part of Spain, it can be a bit harsher, but down here, it truly is amazing."
Yeah, yeah, and once you're here and you're experiencing it day in, day out, it's hard to remember sometimes, especially if you're near for a long time, you haven't visited or travelled outside of Spain. It's hard to remember those dark and dreary days when at 4 o'clock the lights are being turned on and stuff like that. When here we're still outside in short sleeve shirts in the middle of January, or even at Christmas Day when I was in the pool.
There we go. Another good thing here, which obviously get a lot of good press around the world, and Spain has a wonderful reputation, is the food. And it's not just the food here that is spectacular, because it's a lot of local produce. The dishes are very simple. It's almost organic, a lot of it, because it's farmed locally. And the plates, the local plates here are so simplistic but so tasty at the same time. And what appeals to a lot of people from the northern part of Europe when they come, so cheap compared to where they would come from. A plate of ham or a plate of cheese is probably half the price they would pay for it in the UK or a northern city in Europe.
Which we don't get to see, unfortunately, because we're still in our own climate here, living here. where the wages don't seem to rise that much, but the cost of living is going up. So they're seeing the restaurants and the restaurant side of things, and we're seeing the supermarket side and the supermarket prices. And even though every now and again we might treat ourselves because we've got friends over or whatever, and we might go out, but yeah, it's a different perspective when you're looking at it from a tourist point of view than looking at a living here point of view.
It definitely. I think there was a thing years ago I stumbled across online. It was the McDonald's index, and it based the price of a Big Mac around the world compared to what people were earning. So I used to always say to people here that, it's actually probably cheaper for someone to have a pint somewhere like London, in London, than it is here for a local person to have a pint here. And they go, what are you on about? It's so cheap here. I say, yeah, but this is not so much the case probably more recently, but a couple of years back. What people are earning compared to what they're paying for a pint was probably cheaper than what people earn here and we're paying for a pint, because the difference was slightly smaller. So that's interesting. I mean, I'm glad we're concentrating more on people visiting here, because we should do another video on this, I think, about how hard it is here a lot of time for locals, which of course is in the news at the moment with the housing stuff we've touched on in previous videos.
Imagine the days back in 1980 when I first started coming over on holiday. 200, I think it was 230 pesetas to the pound. 230 pesetas to the pound, which in old money, I mean, nowadays that would be just unheard of. You'd be looking at a serious difference in pricing everything. No wonder so many people bought property back then so cheap. No wonder so many people invested in a country like Spain. It wasn't just Spain. I mean, Greece, Portugal, because of the exchange rates were so high and so different. It's still cheaper, as you're saying. The prices are still cheaper. You can still get more for your money with regards to property. Of 300,000 euros over here, you couldn't buy anything in the UK for 300,000. In central London, for example, for 300,000 of any decent size. Whereas over here, you can buy yourself half a mansion. So it's still a country that. As long as they don't start doing silly things that we know they're trying to do, but it's still a much better place to come and invest your money if you've got the possibility.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, it was interesting with my friends traveled around Andalusia a bit, and they came back to us at the weekend, and we were talking about where they've been, and they generally stayed in Parador strike type hotels, which people don't know are usually big old buildings in the middle of cities, or old castles, or being converted, even churches on occasion. And usually they have these amazing views and amazing architecture. And they would seem to be paying, away from the coast, like 70 euros a night for a double room. And I was like, wow, that's so cheap. Still so cheap. So there are bargains out. So I'd say, as a visitor from the northern part of Europe or other parts of the world, definitely the price is a positive here. And even though we do moan about the price of a shandy every now and again on the Costa del Sol on the seafront, it's still a lot cheaper than we are lucky than some of our northern European brothers and sisters, I would say.
So what else? What other things do you think would be reasons for your being positive of living in Spain? I mean, what do you most like about living in Spain?
I like the quiet lifestyle. I mean, I spent 9 years in London before I came here. Then I was 22 years in the same business here, and even though it was a bar, I used to always make the connection that when I had the business I had in London, I would look out the front door and it would be a urine-stained wall with old posters there falling off. And there'd be a couple of empty beer cans there on a very small grey road. And then here I could look out and have a beautiful view of the sea, which was the most amazing thing. But I do love, people criticize the Spanish for being lazy and mañana. But there's something about that thing that's very pleasant here, that the lifestyle is a bit slower. It does drive you crazy when you're waiting for a plumber or electrician or something like that. But in general, things do get done eventually. But it is a slower pace of life. It's not, we've got to get this done now. We've got to get this done now. That doesn't exist. Since I've given up work, I've fallen in love again with Spain again. And that part of Spain, that kind of like, let's relax, and, work isn't the end all. We need to spend time with our families. We need to relax a bit. And you see people doing the simple things like taking a walk down the seafront or something like that. And you appreciate that more when you can do that yourself.
Yeah. There was a sign that I saw on I don't think it was a bar or a restaurant that was some time ago, and I picked a copy of one up that said, "Don't be too busy making a life that don't be too busy making a living that you forget to make a life, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And I agree. The tempo of life here is much nicer. It's much friendlier. It helps you decompress a lot with the way things are going. I mean, you know central London. I know I've been in the places. I've been to London quite a few times with family being there and things like that. And you do see that everyone's running around, everyone's rushing around. Big cities. You see it in Malaga as well. There's no difference. It's a big city, but city life. That the outside, the interior, so like in the campo a little bit, the coast in the summer, we know that that's hustle and bustle. But even then, even though there are a lot of people around, there's still a more relaxed vibe about it. It's still busy, but it's not that racing around to get things done. Apart from the waiters and the waitresses, of course.
I mean, it said there's a lot more space, it seems, as well, because even though the Costa del Sol is there's construction everywhere, there's still vast spaces. You know, it hasn't been completely joined up completely. So if you drive inland by 2 miles, you will come across olive groves everywhere and big green spaces. And the countryside here, even though I always miss the green of the UK, there is something special about the countryside here. I mean, with the blue sky sometimes and the sunshine, it does make it look a bit more spectacular than it actually is compared to, say, I don't know, the Lake District in the UK. But it is, once again, there's a certain purity about it that it kind of relaxes you and takes you down a few pegs, and you can just breathe the air in, which I think a lot of us didn't have that when we were in the UK.
It's the changing colours, the changing scenery. I think that's what does it. The visual stimulation, the changing colours, the piece, and that it's not so built up. I think that's the change in energy that you'll feel when you go travelling inside a little bit. And going back slightly to the Paradors, I do remember there being I'm pretty sure there's a website called Ruta de los Paradores. So basically, it's a trek from the Paradors. It's a list of all the Paradors in Spain that you can go and visit and do your little trek through. And as you say, not expensive at all. The interior tourism is so popular and very economical. That's why a lot of the locals and the Spanish tend to go, apart from the ones that want to spend their week on the beach with the car parked on the seafront, they want to go into the interior to get to know more of the country and more of the old sites and old buildings that make up those Paradors.
I tell you something just suddenly just sprung into my mind about Spain, which I love about here. It hasn't been overexploited yet. So, I mean, I'm going back to the UK next week, and I was looking at getting a taxi to pick me up at Luton Airport, and the taxi said, "Oh, I have to pay £5 to get through the barrier to pick you up." And I was like, "To pick me up? £5 just to pick me up in a pickup zone?" And we're so lucky here on the Costa del Sol that I can still take the train to the airport, which is probably 25, 30 minutes, and it would only cost me €3. Now, the same kind of train back in the home, you're probably talking 20, 25 quid, you know, and things like parking here, even though that they've got the blue zones now where you have to pay to park on the seafront, there's still large areas where you don't have to pay still. And that hasn't happened. Things like when you go to the hospital, there's not the parking fees you have like back in the UK. Those things are starting to change slowly but steadily, but still slow enough that only speed cameras are starting to crop into society here now. When we're in the UK, they were there when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. To go to the Blue Zone, to give someone a little bit of a tip, or people give a bit of a tip. The Blue Zone, you can download an app which is called Telpark, or I think it's something like that. I'll put a little image up of the app so you can download it. If you're in Spain in Blue Zones, it's very good to have this app. Why? Because you can register your car inside the app, and then you can set your time, so you can pay for an hour, for example, and you get notifications when your time's going to run out. And the key here is to let it run out. Why? Because if you let it run out and then pay for another hour, it's cheaper than if you extend your ticket. Just a little tip for you.
There we go. I think another good thing about living here, I used to always, when I was being very cynical or maybe a bit bitter, and people say, "What's the best thing about living on where you live?" And I said that I'm only 20 minutes away from the airport, right? But as much as I love living here now, I probably die here. I think I live the rest of my life. But there is something very comforting knowing that Malaga Airport now is such a hub that sometimes you can even fly direct to the States from there. So it's once again €3 train journey to Malaga Airport, which is the most wonderfully organised airport. It got expanded just at the right time, and you can go anywhere.
Yeah. Yep, with more and more flights happening, the extension of the runway, was it runway 3 that they put in?
Yep.
You see an awful lot of traffic there now, and on any given day, you're looking close to 150 flights, 200 flights coming in. It's busy airport.
Okay, I think what we should before we wind up here, I think over the next week or so, or next 10 days, I think we should do like a kind of yin and yang with this because everybody always complains about, oh, you do like living in Spain. I love living in Spain. Don't get me wrong, I love it in Spain. But there are so many things here which could be better and do drive me mad. And there are bad things about living here. Not all bad. I think the good outnumbers the bad by quite somewhat. But I think we should touch on that on a video.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, it's not always rosy. We know what we like. There are some amazing people here, wonderful people here that are helpful, that are always there to lend a hand and not even. I was going to say bail you out, but it's not even bail you out. If you're in trouble, your neighbours, be them Spanish, or whatever, they'll help you. If they know you, that you get on, you're integrated, you're learning the language, you're around. They are extremely helpful. But I think that goes everywhere. But there's also a lot of things that are negative within urbanisation, within town halls, within local governments. There's all these kind of things that do really put a dampener on why some people will stand back and go, I'm just not going to integrate with anyone. I'm just going to do my own thing because every time I try, I just get knocked back. So there is that side to it as well.
Definitely, I think the whole thing of the community thing here is a very strange one, which we'll touch on when we do that next video. And the kind, there's a lot of odd stuff which we can talk about. Yeah,
For sure. So if you would like to join in, either it be at this episode or another episode, because this episode, well, tell us what you think. What makes you be happier? What makes you smile about being in Spain, living in Spain, or even just visiting if you're not living here? And what ticks you off? What gets on your nerves? Because maybe we can cover that one in the next video. Downstairs in the comment section, you can like, subscribe, and do all the things you need to do, and then you can join us on the next one, and then we might be able to talk about them if you want to. Thank you.
I agree.
Cheers. Good to see you, Mark, and catch you soon.
Yeah, mate. You too. Look after yourself.
Bye.